Hi everybody, I'm Summer Boretsky and I write the Panic About Anxiety blog on PsychCentral.com. I am coming to you from my back deck, which is a very mentally healthy place for me. I love it back here. Trees, birds, the whole nine yards. It's very relaxing. And so I thought it was a really appropriate place for me to record my video for the APA's, let me see if I can get this right, Mental Health Month blog party day. Either way, it's a blog party, and it's coordinated by the American Psychological Association for today, Wednesday, May 16th. And so instead of writing a blog entry, I thought I would do my first video post, and I put first in little air quotes because I've done videos for PsychCentral.com before, but this is really kind of my first informal, casual video where I'm not really going to edit anything. I'm just going to talk to you and tell you about why I do what I do. And what I do is blog about anxiety and panic and agoraphobia. I have panic disorder with agoraphobia, and it wasn't always easy to share that with others openly. I felt uncomfortable about it for a while. I guess I'll have to go back in time to really get you to fully understand, but let's see, how old am I? I'm 28, and I started getting panic attacks when I was 19, so it's been nine years now. I was a sophomore in college, and I was laying in bed one night in my, cell block of a dorm room, trying to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden I felt like the right side of my body felt kind of tingly and weird, and it was unusual. So I sat up in bed and I'm like, what is this? Why is this happening? And now in retrospect, I know it was probably a really weird migraine symptom, which isn't too out of the ordinary for me. But at that time, I was very, very scared. My heart started racing. I'm like, what's going on? What's going on with my body? Why can't, like, why am I getting this sensation? Am I having a stroke? And within about, I don't know, 4.5 seconds, I had convinced myself that I was having a stroke. I got up, I went to the bathroom, stood in front of the mirror, and smiled incessantly, trying to gauge whether or not one side of my face was, kind of behaving incorrectly. I ended up getting lightheaded, which made me, feel even more like I was having a stroke or some type of legitimate medical problem. And so that was my first panic attack, and it was very difficult, and I've had lots more to date. Right after that attack in college, my doctor gave me a prescription for Xanax, and did it help? Yeah, absolutely, but I became too reliant on it, and there came a time when I was basically scared to not take it every couple of hours. So, went back to my doctor, and he said, "Oh, well, let's prescribe you some Paxil." And he did that too. Just kidding. Um, and I said, "Well, okay." He gave me some sample packs to try, which didn't include the patient information leaflet, so I didn't really know what I was getting into. And then I was on that for about 2 years until I decided to withdraw during my first semester of grad school. That was interesting. And so it was at that time I decided to write a piece about Paxil withdrawal and how it made me feel. And I sent this to the LA Times, not really expecting anything at all. Because, why would the LA Times publish something that you just haphazardly send to them in an email one night when you're feeling kind of hypomanic from the withdrawal symptoms? But to my surprise, they published it. And that was a big turning point for me. I had gone from someone who was afraid to talk about panic because in college, I didn't know anyone else with panic disorder. I barely even knew anyone else with anxiety. I knew people who were anxious sometimes, but, not to the point where it became like a pathological thing. So I felt really alone, and therefore I felt kind of uncomfortable sharing anything about my problems with anybody. So as soon as that article was published in the LA Times, I thought, you know what? This is public now. This is public information. Google has archived my name alongside panic disorder, alongside Paxil. It will be there for eternity, and so why not just run with that? And so I started writing about it more, and started writing for Psych Central. Uh, First for their World of Psychology blog, and then last year for Panic About Anxiety. So it's still kind of a struggle these days. I try to be as open as possible about my own panic disorder. I like to blog about my specific panic attacks, and really the reason I do it is because I know how alone I felt, and there are so many people out there who have panic disorder or have, severe anxiety problem, who might think, "Oh my god, I'm alone. Why can everyone else in the world go to the grocery store except for me? Why can everyone else drive on the highway without issue except for me?" Well, I want to actually show these people that, hey, you are not alone. There's a whole crowd of us, and some of us are agoraphobic, and you won't really find us out and about in the streets, but we're here, we exist, we're alive. We might be behind our computers for most of the day, blogging or making videos about our issues, but we're here, and nobody who's going through this is ever alone. And I think the more I talk about panic disorder now, and it still kind of makes me uncomfortable sometimes. I'm like, oh god, should I really like live tweet my panic attack from Target, which is something I did a couple months ago. But every time I write a specific story about myself, I feel like I'm helping to combat mental health related stigma. Because really, so many people suffer from this. There's absolutely there's no shame in talking about it. And talking about it can only bring about good positive effects. I mean, if think about it. I mean, if you started developing some anxiety over, driving or going to a grocery store, those are my two fantastic common examples for me, unfortunately. Um, if you think that that's something that shouldn't be talked about, then I sort of feel like it's a lot harder to get help when you're scared to talk about something. I hope that makes sense. This really isn't scripted. I'm just talking on the fly here, so pardon me if this doesn't really fully make sense the first time it's coming out. But basically, the more that we talk about panic disorder, I feel it's a lot easier to go and seek help. It's a lot easier to talk about it with friends and get advice from them, instead of just kind of like sitting in our own bubble and keeping everything inside, and letting it build and build and build until that anxiety erupts into panic, or something worse, and you know does something to our lives that we really don't want to have to happen. So I'm very that's one of the reasons I love to share, because I feel like the more I share about myself, I hope to be leading by example, and I hope to be encouraging others to not be that afraid to talk about their panic and anxiety disorders. So that's the general gist of why I blog about mental health. And I mean, even if I can just like help one person with one of the entries I post, it really makes me feel good. Some of the feedback that I get in the comments from others who are going through similar things, it makes me feel very, very validated. And I know that my stories are making others feel very validated in return. So that's why I do what I do, and I absolutely love what I do.